Okay guys, welcome back to the MurrayMax channel. We got a new Charlie Kirk video. This video came out like 5 hours ago, and as usual, I haven't watched it yet, so I'm going to watch it together with you and throw in some thoughts along the way. Here we go.
Look at the current league of deportations that's happening, particularly when it predates to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, right? He is a man who hasn't had his due process. He never had his day in court.
That's not true. You know that he spent 4 years in court from 2017 to 2021. In fact, so much so that the judge even ruled on his immigration status, saying that he could be deported at any time for any reason.
If the guy wants to make an argument that he hasn't had the proper court case, then he should lead with that. But to say that he hasn't had his day in court, I mean, that could be interpreted in different ways, and everyone knows he's been in and out of court for a long time.
That court order actually lapsed, so it wasn't valid at the time of his deportation. If we want to go through these, we need people to have their habeas corpus rights. We need people to have the ability to show up in court and actually exemplify their, have their case, be heard in front of a judge, be heard by a jury of their jury of their peers, and yeah, have a chance to be.
Okay, but again, I've done this so many times. Let me just pause, and I don't mean to pick on you. How hard the left is fighting for this MS-13 scumbag is just remarkable to me. It's like I'm not trying to pick on you. Let me make a broad statement.
Worst person
I mean, it is a strange thing to see, because with all the issues that the left could be dedicating their time to, it's so strange to see them focus so much on one person who's got a very, very, colorful and iffy past at best. I mean, it's crazy how much they will kind of like put on pedestals and put the focus on people that have like a terrible history of like abusing women and, you know, domestic violence and things like that. It's crazy.
World. He could be an absolute scumbag.
Is he a U.S. citizen?
No.
Oh, that actually changes things.
It does, absolutely.
And so,
but it does not change
due process? Yes, it does. The Alien Enemies Act says you do. That's not correct.
Okay.
The Alien Enemies Act says you do not have to give due process to those that you are deporting. It is not correct. So they invoked the Alien Enemies Act.
What does it take to invoke that act?
Signature by the president.
Signature from the President of the United States to say that you are being invaded by a foreign power or assisted by a certain force on enemy ground.
Correct.
He was part of MS-13, which is a paramilitary arm of the Venezuelan government.
So, but in order to enact that act, don't we need a war declaration?
Oh, yeah. No, that's what he did on day one. He said that we're being invaded.
Does he have that power?
Yes.
I thought that was a congressionally approved
No,
thing.
that's not correct. The President of the United States has an ability within a 90-day emergency clause window to say that we are being invaded by a special power. It's called the War Powers Act of 1990-something. The War Powers Act gives the President the authority for 90 to 100 days to declare that we are being invaded. And we have been invaded, by the way, by MS-13 and Tren de Aragua. It's a material fact.
Considering, one of the things that's super important when we consider law is the spirit of the law. And do we really believe that these laws were enacted with the spirit in mind of gangs being associated as arms of a state?
Potentially.
MS-13 and Tren de Aragua are not Venezuelan arms. They're not.
No, MS-13 is. That's not correct. But let me throw it back at you. MS-13 is El Salvadorian and also Venezuela. Yeah, Tren de Aragua is Venezuela. MS-13 is El Salvadorian. He signed Declaration of Invasions against both. But let me challenge you on this, because you're coming after this in good faith. Was the First Amendment written in the spirit of Facebook posts?
Can you clarify a little bit?
The First Amendment,
Yeah.
part of the Bill of Rights, ratified in 1791, was it written in the spirit that it shall apply to tweets?
Not to private corporations.
Well, no, meaning like, do your free speech rights apply also to the internet?
So it applies to public squares. The question that we're having now is Facebook a public square? Are Twitter public squares?
This is a strange kind of angle for Charlie Kirk to take, because we all know that things like the previous Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even this platform, they've had a history of censoring people when they're telling the truth, when they're not saying something that violates terms and conditions. And so it's kind of a strange angle to take, because while you are entitled by the Constitution to free speech, and it does apply to certain aspects of the internet, there's kind of been some gray area in regards to social media and what you say online.
The issue is that we would all agree that you have a First Amendment right to express yourself and the government can't throw you in prison regardless of where you have it. Whether you write a newspaper op-ed or whether you do a Facebook post, right? You have a First Amendment right to do that. The point being is you say, well, the spirit of the law in 1798, it doesn't matter if a law is old. It matters what moral claim is the law trying to make, because times sort of change, but people do not. Human nature goes unchanged. And so the point being is the Alien Enemies Act has been invoked 4 times in our nation's history: War of 1812, Civil War, World War I, World War II. And I believe totally appropriately invoked here. It's been enjoined by the Supreme Court right now, so we'll find out its future. But when you have 15 million people come into your country in a span of 4 years, that is definitionally an invasion.
If you think about how many people that actually is, there's a part of you that wants to say, I mean, doesn't that sound a little dramatic to say it's an invasion? But if you picture how many people that is, how many stadiums that would fill, the comparison in size to major cities and things like that, and consider that many people have come into the country, and a certain percentage of them are straight up criminal convicts, gang members. Of course, not all of them, but let's just be realistic here. The number of people that are coming over the border and have already come over the border, especially under the Biden-Harris administration, it's baffling if you were to actually have like a visualization of how many people that is.
I guess an invasion requires a certain commitment from a state, right? It's a big difference between an invasion and an immigration wave is whether there's a state operating
or a force. The cartels, man. The cartels operate like a state. The cartels are the reason that a lot of these people are able to make it up to the border. They pay money to the cartels. The cartels are using drones. They're using speedboats. They're using helicopters. The cartels act like a government. In fact, the cartels run the Mexican government. The Sinaloa drug cartel is more powerful than the Mexican Mexican government.
I would agree with labeling these terrorist organizations. I think they have the funding. They operate. They have such. But there's.
On the cartel note, if you haven't looked into it, I would challenge you to Google the last election in Mexico and search how many potential candidates were unalived, that were taken out so that they couldn't even run. And it kind of makes you wonder, what kind of deal did anybody who wasn't taken out make to actually be able to stick around? It's worth a Google. Let me know in the comments what you think about that.
Key distinction between a government entity and a terrorist organization.
Hold on a second. We declared war on Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
What government was Al-Qaeda?
Good point.
We can declare war on terrorist organizations.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. So if we signed the Alien Enemies Act against Al-Qaeda, it would have been perfectly fair and appropriate, obviously. And Al-Qaeda is not a government. What I'm saying, though, is that the cartels, the MS-13 and Tren de Aragua, they are being supported by governments. They're harbored in governments. The Alien Enemies Act, of course, applies to them. These are enemies here on the mainland of America doing harm. And Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a member of MS-13. He was a wife beater, a child abuser, here illegally. He had a deportation notice on his head. And now he's back in his country of El Salvador, and we should be happy that he's home.
Key things to remember about that particular case. There's a lot of people on the left who want to say that he hasn't had his day in court, just like this guy. And they'll say that he shouldn't be in El Salvador because a court ruled that he shouldn't be. Well, you can't make the argument that he's not gang affiliated and that he shouldn't be in El Salvador because a court ruled that way originally, because the court's ruling was based on the fact that he was in danger from a rival gang. And you don't have rival gangs if you're not in a gang. Just interesting. Let me know in the comments if you know anything about that.
So I can grant you that he might be all these things. It does not mean that he doesn't get a day in court.
But as a non-U.S. citizen, though, the Alien Enemies Act allow us to expeditiously remove him. It's just the way it works. I mean,
no, you're right. But
now that's not the case.
We can argue whether that was a correct invocation. Right?
That's irrelevant. The Supreme Court has now said no more, so there will be no more. But in that specific case, nothing was done illegally. The only argument you might have is that the judge says you could deport him anywhere except El Salvador. So we probably should have just deported him to, I don't know, the Congo, and everyone would have been happier. Hilariously, they said, oh, he's in a foreign jail. No, he's not in a foreign jail. He's an El Salvadorian in his own country. He's not an American. If he would have went to Gitmo, that would have been a foreign jail.
Yeah. Okay. And then, let's see.
Thank
I
you.
think that's it for me. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Could I ask?
I mean, that's fair enough. And props to this guy for at least being civil and not engaging in ad hominems. And, you know, some of these people, they get up there and they're just rude and obnoxious and resort to name calling right off the bat. This guy, like Charlie Kirk said, was trying to, you know, debate in good faith, and, you know, always a tip of the hat to that. So let me know in the comments what you think about that. Such a strange time we're living in, where we get people that are so upset that someone that's gang affiliated and not a citizen is get sent back to their home country. But, you know, let me know in the comments what you think about that. New channel, any feedback is welcome and wanted. So feel free to leave any comments, give the video a like, subscribe if you like, and there will be more videos to come. Thanks for tuning in to MurrayMax.